So, did you know we might actually be living through, well, what some scientists are calling a silent apocalypse for life on Earth?
Hmm.
It's this crisis, and your sources suggest it's so immense it could, dwarf the catastrophe that wiped out the dinosaurs. It
Mm.
could fundamentally rewrite the rules
Wow.
for, well, everything that lives here.
Yeah.
So our mission in this deep dive, really drawing on the material you shared, is to try and unravel the hidden workings behind this silent catastrophe,
Right.
looking at its causes, the consequences, and, well, the urgent solutions we need. It's a huge global challenge.
And it's really crucial to grasp right from the start. This isn't some, far off problem for the future.
No.
What your research really shows vividly is that this crisis is now. It's threatening the very fabric of life as we speak,
Yeah.
affecting ecosystems, species, just unprecedented scale all over the globe.
And the scale, I mean, the numbers are just staggering, aren't they?
They really are.
Your sources highlight species vanishing at what, maybe 1,000 to 10,000 times the natural background rate?
That's the estimate, yeah. It's hard to even comprehend that number.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Dozens of species disappearing every single day.
Every day.
And it's not just about, the iconic animals we think of, like pandas or rhinos, though that's heartbreaking enough.
Of course.
What really hit me from your material was this idea that we're watching entire ecosystems basically unravel.
Exactly. It's the connections breaking down. And diving into the causes, what the sources really drive home is, well, this isn't natural.
Right.
It's overwhelmingly a crisis that we've created, human actions.
Okay.
And if you look at the big picture, three main culprits really stand out. The first one, the biggest driver by far, is habitat destruction.
Right. Losing their homes.
Yeah, just think about the scale of human expansion.
Right.
Forests cleared for farming,
Uh-huh.
cities sprawling out over wetlands, mining, scarring landscapes. Your sources talk about the Amazon rainforest specifically.
The Amazon.
It hosts, believe it or not, 10% of all known species.
Wow. 10%.
And it's lost 17% of its area just in the last 50 years.
17%. That's huge.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And it's not just cutting down trees. It's wiping out the homes for jaguars, rare orchids, countless others. They literally have nowhere else to go.
That 17% figure, yeah, it just hits differently, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's not just a statistic. It's this monumental loss of irreplaceable, homes. What else is pushing this decline?
Well, then there's climate change.
Yeah.
And that acts like this powerful amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
It makes every other pressure worse.
Right. Layers on top.
Exactly. Your sources don't just say warming oceans. They go into detail, explaining how rising temperatures make corals expel the algae they need to survive.
The zooxanthellae.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Leading to this devastating bleaching we're seeing more and more often.
Uh-huh.
Coral reefs, they support, 25% of all marine life?
A quarter of all life in the sea. Incredible.
We've lost half of the world's coral cover since 1980. Half.
Since 1980.
So you're fundamentally changing the ocean's engineers, messing up migration, breeding, food sources for so many species, not just the ones on the reef itself.
Wow. And the third factor.
And yeah, a more sort of direct pressure, poaching, and the illegal wildlife trade.
Yes.
And this isn't just small-scale stuff. It's a massive illegal industry, billions of dollars driven by global demand.
For what? Things like tusks, horns?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Elephants for tusks, tigers for parts, pangolins for scales.
Yeah.
You name it. Your sources mentioned over 20,000 elephants are killed every year, just for ivory.
20,000 annually.
Yeah. And these aren't just isolated losses. That's
Yeah.
the key thing. Taking these animals out has this ripple effect, this cascade across the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
It knocks everything off balance.
It really makes you stop and think, if just one thing, like the demand for ivory, can ripple out like that.
Mm-hmm.
How does losing specific species lead to these bigger cascading problems? Maybe we should unpack this with some examples from your sources.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at some case studies. What's really striking in your research is how the African elephant is like the perfect example of a keystone species.
Keystone, meaning essential for the whole structure.
Exactly. They're not just big animals wandering around. They're literally landscape architects. They clear paths, which act as fire breaks.
Okay.
They dig for water, creating pools other animals rely on. They spread seeds in their dung, shaping the whole plant community.
Right.
Your sources say their numbers are down? I mean, in some areas, 70% since the 1970s.
70%? That's catastrophic.
It is. And it's not just fewer elephants. It fundamentally changes the savanna. You see less plant diversity, it affects the grasses, it affects the predators, everything.
Wow. Okay. Who else?
Then think about something maybe less obvious, like the monarch butterfly.
Ah, the migration.
An incredible journey, right?
Mm.
A marvel. But it's collapsing. Partly habitat loss, partly climate shifts.
Hmm.
Your sources really focus on milkweed. That's the only thing their caterpillars eat.
Right, the host plant.
And it's disappearing fast. Pesticides, land development, it's getting wiped out. So monarch populations, they've plummeted maybe 80% in just the last 20 years.
80%.
And when we talk about pollination networks, it's not just bees, it's this complex web insects, birds, even some mammals that help plants reproduce, including most of our food crops.
Right, you mentioned 75% of global food crops rely on pollinator.
Exactly. So the monarch's decline, it's not just sad, it's a huge warning sign about the fragility of these systems we depend on for our food.
That really drives it home, doesn't it? How something seemingly small, like a butterfly, connects to our own food supply. That's, yeah, humbling. What about species really on the brink?
Well, that brings us to a really sobering case. The Javan rhino.
Oh, yeah. Critically endangered.
Extremely.
Mm.
Your sources highlight there are fewer than 75 left, just clinging on in one park in Indonesia.
75 individuals total.
Total.
Yeah.
And they're also landscape architects in their own way. They browse, keeping forest clearings open, letting sunlight in.
Creating different habitats.
Exactly. Supporting other, smaller species.
Yeah.
If they go extinct, it's not just losing the rhino, it triggers this domino effect. Less biodiversity, the whole forest is less resilient to, climate change or disease.
It's fascinating how this theme of interconnectedness just keeps coming up in your sources.
It's central.
It really feels like the planet is this incredibly intricate web, and we're just snipping threads one by one.
That's a good way to put it.
Like the sea otter example you mentioned earlier. Otters nearly wiped out.
Right, in the Pacific?
Sea urchin populations explode. They mow down the kelp forests.
Which are vital nurseries for fish and other marine life.
And suddenly, whole underwater ecosystems collapse.
Exactly. It just hammers home that no loss is trivial. Every single extinction chips away at that web of life, often in ways we don't even foresee.
Yeah. Well, here's the really sobering part.
Right.
It's detailed in that big 2019 UN report your sources cite.
Over 1 million species. 1 million. That's about 1 in 8 species on Earth are currently at risk of extinction.
1 in 8.
Yeah, and this isn't some future projection necessarily. It's happening right now, as we speak.
Wow.
And if we keep going like this, the projection is we could lose half of all species by 2100.
Half by the end of this century.
Yeah, and the really crucial difference compared to past mass extinctions, asteroids, volcanoes.
Right.
This one, it's us. It's unequivocally driven by human activity, our deforestation, industry, how we use resources.
An extinction event of our own making. Yeah, that's a chilling thought.
It is.
And your sources mentioned something else too, these tipping points where ecosystems could just collapse irreversibly.
Yes, that's a major concern.
Sure.
This is where it gets really intense, potentially.
Like the Amazon example again?
Exactly. Your research points out if deforestation goes beyond maybe 20–25%, the whole system could flip irreversibly. It could shift from rainforest to a much drier savanna-like state.
And that wouldn't just mean losing trees.
Oh, no. You'd release billions of tons of carbon stored in that forest, massively accelerating climate change globally.
Wow.
You'd doom countless species found only there. And you'd threaten the livelihoods of millions of people who depend on it. Not to mention, the statistic that 30% of global food production relies on stable ecosystems.
Right. So we're talking about fundamental stability, our ability to feed ourselves, even.
Precisely. The scale of the challenge is, it's immense. But, and this is important, your sources also emphasize that solutions are emerging.
Okay, so there is some hope.
There is. Things are happening. People are trying things. We see these incredible reforestation projects, like in Ethiopia, remember, planting 350 million trees in a single day.
Yeah, that number was astounding.
But the insight there isn't just the number. It's understanding you need the right native species, you need long-term care, you need the local communities involved for it to actually work. It's not just planting.
Right, it has to be sustainable.
Then you've got stronger anti-poaching laws, creating wildlife corridors so animals can move between protected areas. Think of the tiger projects in India.
Using technology, too.
Absolutely. Drones, AI monitoring, but also really working with the communities living alongside wildlife. That's key.
Okay.
And innovation, things like lab-grown ivory, trying to reduce the demand at the source, and big advances in sustainable farming, trying to lessen the pressure on habitats.
Right, attacking the problem from different angles.
Exactly. And then on the global scale, you have agreements like the Convention on Biological Diversity, aiming to protect, 30% of land and oceans by 2030.
The 30 by 30 goal, yeah.
But what your sources highlight is the challenge there,
Hmm.
turning that ambition into reality. It needs serious, consistent funding and real political will from all the countries involved. That's the hard part.
It feels like these efforts show change is possible, right? It's happening.
Definitely possible. Already underway in places.
But what your sources seem to really stress is that these solutions need, well, they need scaling up massively.
Urgently. Yeah.
With speed, with funding. It needs huge public support, a real shift in how we see things globally.
Yeah, it's a monumental task, no doubt about it. The sixth mass extinction, as your materials really detail so clearly, it's a crisis of our own making. But the path forward, even though it's steep, it is becoming clearer. The solutions, the insights we've talked about, they offer that path.
So what does this all really mean for you, the listener? I guess protecting wildlife. It isn't just about saving animals, is it? Or beautiful places.
No, not at all.
It's about preserving the very systems that keep us alive. Our food, our water, the air we breathe. It's all connected.
Absolutely. It's fundamentally about our own survival, too.
So given this incredible interconnectedness and this thread of tipping points you mentioned, it raises this really big question, doesn't it? Based on your sources. How do we move beyond just individual actions, which are good, but maybe not enough?
Right.
How do we get to the systemic changes, the fundamental shifts needed to protect whole ecosystems at the scale and speed required?
That's the core challenge, isn't
That
it?
really is. So what do you think? How can we collectively better protect our planet's wildlife? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them. Let's keep this vital conversation going.
Yeah, please do.